He was a monster who got tired of being humiliated again and again and decided to take revenge on humanity's greatest heroes. 13 years ago, humanity faced the biggest challenge in the history of this world, as a mysterious floating fortress containing hordes of monsters appeared in the sky, which marked the beginning of a never-ending war between the humans and the monsters. Some of humanity's bravest members, known as the Rangers, rose up to the occasion and started a valiant effort to free mankind of these evil invaders. The strongest amongst them came to be known as the Dragon Keepers, including the Blue Keeper, the Green Keeper, the Pink Keeper, the Yellow Keeper, and the strongest of them all, the Red Keeper. Even after 13 years, the war between the two factions continues, as every Sunday a new wave of monster descends in the stadium, and every single time, the Keepers are there to fight against them and eliminate them from the face of the earth. This became a form of entertainment in this world where hordes of people get in line to watch the fights inside the stadium. The news reporter shows the large number of people in the arena, while the Rangers are standing guard behind them ready to deal with any problems. Finally, the Red Keeper appears and is immediately swarmed by his supporters and followers who stand by him to get autographs, while millions of people tune in from their televisions. Meanwhile, a young guy enters the arena and is immediately intercepted by two of the Rangers. The red-haired guy notices that the protagonist seems to be new in this world, but tells him not to worry as he will protect him no matter what. The guy looks around the arena where the battle is supposed to take place, which looks no less than a mall, and reminds the redhead that there have been no casualties in years, so it should be safe enough. He was about to leave when the redhead tried to shove a flyer in his face, claiming that he should also join the Ranger force. As it turns out, becoming a Ranger is not a very hard job to do. In fact, people are encouraged to become Rangers, as they all hope to become as strong as the Keepers someday in their life. The guy refuses and is about to leave, but the blonde girl grabs his arms and tells him to reconsider and promises to meet him to get an answer by the end of the evening. He thanks her and moves on inside the arena and looks up to see the massive air fortress looming above him. All of a sudden, a beam of lightning erupts from the fortress and a bunch of enemies spawn on the ground, wearing black robes. The people seem to be unimpressed, but soon the dust clears to show that a huge tiger monster has also arrived alongside the small monsters known as the Dusters. The crowd erupts in cheers as they boo the monsters, while even throwing empty bottles and other trash at them. Finally, the Keepers appear inside the arena as the Red Keeper tells the tiger that they will not let the monsters hurt anyone, while they show themselves before taking a very cringe pose as the crowd erupts in loud cheers. The tiger monster seems to be unfazed and claims that he was born because of the grudges of the tiger living on Earth, and he will destroy humanity so that animals can roam in the entire world again. After that, he shouts at the Dusters to take their positions and show the humans their real place. Immediately, the Dusters spring into action, and one of them rushes straight into the crowd with a sword and would have attacked a child, when the blonde-haired girl saves him at the last moment and tells the redhead to take both the mother and the child to somewhere safe while she deals with the monster. Meanwhile, the tiger uses a sonic ground blast, sending shockwaves all around the stadium, which hits the Red and the Yellow Keeper as they are hurled away, landing several yards away, while the tiger monster gloats about how he is the strongest monster they have ever faced. The Red Keeper claims that the monster's strength is extraordinary, but the Green Keeper takes it personally and grabs a huge boulder from the ground before throwing it towards the tiger. The monster's smile immediately turns into terror as he gets buried beneath the rock, but to everyone's surprise, the monster blows through the boulder and transforms into the strongest being on Earth, Truck-kun. The Keepers immediately take the strongest position possible and run towards the truck to destroy it, but Truck-kun is too OP and blasts the Rangers away into an alternate world in a single hit. They all fall to the ground, while the crowd goes silent, wondering whether this is the end of humanity. But to everyone's relief, the Keepers slowly rise up once again and get ready for their ultimate attack. The Dusters immediately swarm around the tiger monster and start talking about how much overacting they have to do every single week. While one of them notices that the Duster named Fighter D is also there even though he is not supposed to be on the shift this week. He tells them that he doesn't care about this drama anymore and refuses to act, while the other Dusters scream at him to come back as the fight is almost over. The Keepers fire their ultimate blast, which creates a huge explosion, while the Keepers stand in a group together posing while the crowd erupts in loud cheers. Here we return 1 hour in the past on top of the flying fortress. All of the Dusters are worried because they haven't come up with a new interesting monster for the Keepers to fight this week. One of them goes up to the whiteboard and draws a dinosaur, but Phytera tells them that he is all out of ideas and goes to take a nap. A bunch of them huddle around the radio to get inspiration from what the people on Earth want to see, but they don't get anything. It turns out that all the leaders of these monsters were dead within a year of them arriving on Earth. But the Keepers decided to keep all this a secret and forced the Dusters to form a truce with them if they wanted to save their lives. They told the Dusters to come up with new ideas of monsters each week and fight against them in the arena for the public. Dusters have the ability to transform their body into whatever they want, so they would change their shape into a monster and pretend to fight the Keepers before getting defeated and returning back on the ship. All of the fighters come up with their own designs, but none of them seem to work. When Fighter D tells them to try a tiger, they all like this idea as they have not done a tiger monster before and use an encyclopedia as a reference as one of the Dusters transforms into his version of a tiger. Fighter D, however, is not satisfied with his life and calls the others a bunch of losers who are willing to lose every week. He tells them that they should try to complete their objective of world domination even if their leaders are dead, but the others simply laughed at him at that point. Back in the present, as the dust clears, Fighter D emerges, healing his body up while all the rest are gone. He tells the Keepers that he is done playing their games and runs at them in a very pathetic fashion for an attack. The Keepers seem to be confused and talk to each other about what to do, as this is not in the script. The Red Keeper, however, tells them not to worry as he will deal with this monster, and starts running at him. Fighter D transforms his arms into a sword and swings at the Red Keeper, but the Keeper tells him to follow the script from the next time or else he will be destroyed, before using his lightsaber to literally chop him in half while the crowd rejoices at the victory. Back at the fortress, all the Dusters seem relieved after a good performance, while one of them gets worried as D has still not returned yet. It turns out that D decided to ditch his fellow's mates, as he takes shape back on the roof of the arena and transforms into our protagonist from the start of the video. Just as he completes his transformation, the door behind him opens and the blonde girl walks in and asks whether he has made a decision. D smiles eerily and claims that becoming a ranger sounds like a good idea, and maybe he should appear in the recruitment exam. The blonde girl asks him about his sudden motivation, and he simply replies that he wants to destroy all of his enemies, while looking up at the giant poster of the Dragon Keepers. The next morning, he attends the training program where the program officers tell them about how the flying fortress appeared a decade ago and monsters started erupting from it and tried to destroy humanity. But the Rangers defended everyone, and 1 year after the monsters' arrival, the Keepers finally found a divine artifact with the power to destroy any and all monsters. D keeps running while looking at some of the senior officials and their funky hairstyles. He realizes that none of the new recruits probably know about how the entire Sunday showdown is completely scripted and they are living a life of lies. He tells himself to calm down as his actual enemies are only the Keepers who destroyed their bosses and started ordering them around. Later that day, he goes on to the Dragon Keepers' headquarters where the receptionist tells him that none of the Keepers are here. He is very confused and tries to extract more information, but suddenly he gets called by the redhead that he met earlier. He introduces himself as Hibai, a rookie ranger, while the blonde girl arrives at the scene and introduces herself as Suzu before telling Hibai not to bother D. The redhead is way too excited about another new recruit and tells him not to worry as he believes that D will pass the exam as long as he wills it. D tries to get away from the weird guy because the transformed skin is pretty fragile and breaks very easily, but realizes that Suzu is looking at him very intently. He gets scared that his cover might be blown, but she tells him that they should get some lunch together. D lets out a sigh of relief as he thinks about how dumb these humans are, and gets ready to act out his plan. Meanwhile, back at the fortress, the Dusters are all playing different childish games to keep themselves entertained when one of the Dusters runs inside and screams that the Dragon Keepers are coming on the ship. All of them get scared while the Keepers arrive in a helicopter and enter the fortress. Fighter A immediately goes ahead to ask whether they want anything, but the Red Keeper tells him not to worry as he is not here to beat them up. He puts his arms on the fighter and claims that they are all comrades who made a truce amongst themselves and tells him to smile. The Blue Keeper isn't as amused, however, and claims that it isn't funny because one of them tries to blow their covers and betrayed the Rangers by not following the script. He asks whether everyone on the fortress is conspiring against them, but it tells him that D acted on his own and none of them support him. Hearing this, the Blue Keeper shouts amongst the rest to show the traitor who didn't follow the script. Everyone stands silent while a scared fighter tells him that D hasn't returned since yesterday and they can't seem to find him anywhere. The Blue Keeper gets mad and grabs his collar, asking whether they are covering up for him, but Red Keeper tells him to chill as it's not their fault that one of them betrayed the Keepers. The Red Keeper tells them to inform the headquarters as soon as they get the information about DS whereabouts and further explains that they are taking some safety measures to ensure none of this ever happens again. He introduces them to two senior rangers named Aaron and Rory, who will be residing inside the fortress from now on, and the Dusters will all work under their supervision. Everyone is quiet, but Fighter C is enraged at this breach of privacy and starts shouting at the Keepers that they can't just decide everything without even consulting them and tries to get in their faces. But the Blue Keeper delivers a swift backhand, which blows his head off, silencing him for a while as he regenerates. Fighter A immediately apologizes and begs for forgiveness, promising to follow their orders perfectly. The Red Keeper shows one last feat of strength and punches one of the giant pillars into smithereens, threatening them that if anyone tired to betray them, he will eradicate them from the world. Back on Earth, D is finally getting some good food, but doesn't really know how to eat properly, which seems to have drawn Suzu's attention, but they immediately start talking about something else. She explains that the Dragon Keepers don't stay at one location, as they have several strongholds all over the city, and Hibai claims that the Keepers and the Rangers don't only fight the monsters, but also help the world by holding cleaning drives and even helping with local police cases. Without thinking much, D ends up saying that the public would be really sad when they get to know that it's all a scripted battle. Both Suzu and Hibai stop talking, completely shocked, while D wonders how could he cover this slip of his tongue. Thankfully, Suzu speaks up and asks whether he also watched the same video on the internet which claimed that the fights are all scripted, and D immediately agrees to save his ass. After a while, both Suzu and Hibai take their leave as Suzu needs to deliver a letter to the Red Keeper, while Hibai needs to head back to the training grounds. Hearing this, D suddenly hatches a plan to reach the Red Ranger and calls onto a kid who took a picture with the two Rangers a little while before. He asks him to show the picture, and after focusing on Hibai's face, he ends up successfully transforming into him. The kid is terrified and runs away, while D decides to follow Suzu to the Red Ranger's headquarters. She asks whether he was not required at the training station, but D replies that the seniors claimed that it was a holiday today, so he thought he would help her out. They start walking when D asks whether it's fine if he delivers the letter to the Red Keeper, and after a look of amazement, Suzu agrees and hands him the letter. It turns out that he is hiding a steak knife in his bag as he intends to kill the Red Keeper the moment he gets a chance to. Suzu scans her eyes and they enter the common room where he is overwhelmed to see a lot of Rangers dressed in red clothes, which makes it impossible for him to know who the Red Keeper is, as he has never seen him without his mask. One of the Rangers walks up to him and starts asking what the hell is he doing here, and D replies that he needs to deliver the letter to the Red Keeper personally. The guy thinks it is weird and lies that he is the Red Ranger. D thinks it is the truth and was about to attack, when Suzu stops him, claiming that the guy is named Takeda and is just a senior member. Takeda, however, senses something weird and grabs his arm, asking him to show what he got in his back, scaring D as he thinks his cover is about to be blown. But Suzu comes to the rescue once again and tells Takeda to back off as Hibai is a junior and he shouldn't bully juniors. She grabs the letter from D's hands and gives it to Takeda before leaving alongside D. While they were walking back, D suddenly notices a poster which showed the true face of the Red Keeper, when to his absolute surprise, the Red Keeper emerges from the lift and walks towards the room. D immediately shouts his name and he turns around to ask what he wants. D was wondering whether he could strike at this range, but Suzu again intervenes and tells the Red Keeper that Hibai is just a very big fan of him. The Keeper smiles and tells him to take care and leaves the room while Suzu takes D outside. D contemplates about how he got really lucky today, but Suzu's demeanor changes as she asks him to hand over the knife that he is hiding in his bag. This catches D off guard as he asks how she knows about it. She asks for the knife once again, and as soon as D hands it over, she slashes him across the face, revealing his true identity. She tells him that he is extremely sloppy and weak, which enrages D, who tries to attack her multiple times, but she deals with him easily as he realizes there is no way he could win against her. She tells him that she knows that he was trying to kill the Red Keeper, but claims that there is no way someone as sloppy as him can even come close to scratching him. She tells him that even if he got in range and tried to attack, the keeper would have easily turned the tables and would have killed him. She gets close to Dee's face and tells him that she wants to work alongside with him, as she also wants the keepers to die and would like to help. Just then Hibai arrives in the back alley and tells them that a monster has appeared near the park. Thankfully, Dee quickly transformed into his normal form by now, and they all rush towards the park. The monster turns out to be Fighter F, who was the only friend of Dee. He gets chased around by Takeda and his crew as he takes potshot at the fighter, injuring him again and again, while F runs around to try and find Dee. Suddenly, the Red Keeper appears in front of him and transforms into his suit before taking out the divine weapon. Dee recognizes that weapon, as if it hits them, even the fighters cannot regenerate. He tries to warn F to back off, but the Ranger charges the weapon and lets it loose on Fighter F, who gets destroyed in a brilliant show of fire and light, while his body parts fly everywhere, never to regenerate again. Dee looks at his friend's dead remains and vows to take revenge and kill the Keepers no matter how hard it may be. Dee suddenly has a flashback about 12 years ago when the Rangers defeated the bosses and addressed all the fighters together. The Red Keeper told them that they had two choices. Either they can die right here right now, or they can form a coalition with the Keepers which will ensure their survival as well. He remembers the arrogance that the Keepers had and angrily starts walking away. But to his surprise, Hibai starts following him. He turns around to ask what he wanted and Hibai calmly asks whether Dee knew that monster, and if he did, then he is sorry for his loss. This takes Dee by surprise, who asks what the hell is he talking about, but Hibai continues by saying that the monsters have no way to victory no matter how much they tried, so they should stop their evil doings. Dee asks how does he know about him being a monster, and Hibai replies that he ended up overhearing the conversation between him and Suzu in the alleyway but wanted to give Dee another chance. He tells him that no matter how long they fight, at the end of the day, justice will always prevail. This annoys Dee, who starts shouting that they can't talk about justice when they have been lying to the people of the earth for the past 12 years and forcing the fighters to put on a show every single week just to keep living. He promises to put an end to their organization and free all the fighters from their enslavement. Hibai looks shocked but suddenly pulls out a piece of paper, claiming that he has successfully passed the exam, and happily claims that from this day onwards they can both start their training as fellow Rangers. Dee gets frustrated and slaps his hand away, claiming that he is never going to shake hands with the enemy, and tells Hibai that he is not fit to be a ranger as well before disappearing in the wind. Later that day, he meets up with Suzu in a cafe where she claims that she knew he would come to him for help, but he arrogantly tells her that he is here just to get some information, and as soon as his work is done, he is going to disappear from her life. Suzu takes offense to that and uses her knife to chop off Dee's head before she continues to eat as if nothing happened. Dee freaks out as he puts his head back and asks whether she is crazy. She looks at him with eyes full of mischief before telling him that she knows his secret, and if he tries to do anything to betray her, she will immediately release the information to the public, which will result in a humiliating public execution. This scares Dee, and he agrees to work together, and hearing this, she tells him that if he wants to defeat the Keepers, he needs to get their trump card, which is their divine weapon. There are 5 divine weapons in total, 1 for each ranger, and those weapons provide the Keepers with an incredible source of energy, and with those weapons, they can destroy even the immortal monster. According to her, if they manage to steal that weapon away, the Keepers would be useless, as no matter what they do, they can never kill the immortal monsters who can simply regenerate and attack again. This seems like a good plan, but Dee knows that if these weapons hold so much power, the Keepers will make sure to keep it closeby. Suzu tells him that the Ranger organization is not as disciplined as he might think, and claims that there are a lot of cracks and loopholes which can be abused. According to her, the one day when the Keepers are busy and not protecting their divine weapons is the day of the showdown on Sunday, where they will fight in the stadium, and during that time they will steal the weapon. A couple days pass by and soon Sunday comes, which means everyone is present inside the stadium to watch the Rangers dismantle and destroy a bunch of monsters. Meanwhile, Dee and Suzu stand outside the Red Keeper's headquarters, where he changes his appearance to match the Red Keeper and enters the building while Suzu guides him. He walks by a couple of Rangers who immediately stand aside, which fills him with confidence. He walks through the main door to enter the weapons room, but to his surprise the Joker Takeda is sitting nearby, looking all suspicious. He asks why Red is home so early, and D replies that he needs to get the divine weapon and transform again to kill some monsters. Takeda looks at him for a moment but stands up and walks by him, telling him to take his time as he is the boss. D immediately uses his transformation abilities to pick through a lock, while Takeda starts talking trash about the monsters and how they all are the scum of Earth which should be killed. This ends up angering D, but Suzu tells him to keep his calm and focus on the mission. Thankfully, he is able to keep his composure and enters the main room where he finds the legendary weapon literally lying around like dirty laundry. He picks the weapon up, rejoicing on his momentary victory, but Takeda ends up shooting him in the head. He falls to the ground and starts regenerating his head as Takeda laughs about how he was suspicious because he smelled like a monster. D can't understand and shouts that if it was actually the Red Keeper, he would have died, but Takeda claims that Red Keeper would have never fallen for a surprise attack like this. Following that, he keeps shooting D in the face, destroying his head, then waiting for him to regenerate so that he could destroy it once again. This happens for a while when finally Takeda has had his fun and grabs the legendary weapon to finish the monster. D tells him to think again as he reveals the belt of dynamite that he has in his hands. He threatens to blow everything including this building into dust because he can regenerate anyways. This scares the crap out of Takeda, who puts the weapon down and tells D that they can maybe talk about it. But D takes advantage of this and smacks Takeda in the head with the weapon, knocking him down before bonking him in the head once again for good measure. Suzu congratulates him for completing the mission as he starts climbing out on the roof when, to his horror, the Red Keeper arrives and stares down at him. D gets out of the shaft onto the roof when the Red Keeper tells him to drop the weapon and run away. But D thinks that he has the advantage and rushes in for an attack, which is easily dodged by the Keeper, who sidesteps and backs off each and every time. An angry D tries to use some fancy MMA moves on him, but the Red Keeper calmly grabs his legs and throws him at the satellite disc, destroying a part of his body. D gets up once again and starts regenerating his arm while it grabs on to the giant metal ball. Finally, he is able to attach his fallen arm back while also throwing the giant metal disc at the Keeper, but to his surprise, Red simply grabs a random metal pipe and hits a home run, before throwing the pipe at D, destroying half of his body once again. D realizes that his arm holding the weapon got sliced off and was falling off the roof, so he jumps off after it and somehow manages to get a hold of it as he climbs back up. The Red Keeper simply smiles, which makes D realize that he wasn't even trying. The Red Keeper reveals that he didn't want to waste a good opportunity to film some content for the people and was waiting for the reporters to arrive. Finally, the chopper with the cameras arrive and start recording the fight, which gives Red the chance to raise some suspense by pretending to be hurt by his recent fight. Before D could understand what was exactly happening, Blue Keeper kicks his face off and knocks him to the ground. All the Keepers assemble once again, while the Red Keeper gives a speech for the audience and tells Blue to finish the job. Blue charges his weapon and thrusts it into D's chest, blowing him up like the Harry Potter spell as he flies away in the air like a helium balloon. After D was high up in the sky, he looks down and swears that he will make sure that their organization gets destroyed. But before he could say anything else, Blue clicks his fingers and he explodes to smithereens as the crowd claps for humanity's victory once more. Red basks in the glory of victory and goes ahead to pick his prized weapon up, but suddenly realizes that the weapon is actually just D's hand, which he changed to look like a weapon, while the actual weapon is stolen. Red stands there with a horrified look, not knowing what to do, while Suzu has already gotten the weapon and puts it on the table as she hatches a plan to destroy the Keepers even if Fighter D can no longer help her. Back at the Rangers' headquarters, all the Keepers unite together to come and have lunch to celebrate another successful Sunday filled with spectacles and shows for the audiences. They all are accompanied by their personal assistants, who are the highest rank ranges after the Keepers and are their right-hand men. Everyone seems to have a senior ranger with them, apart from the Yellow Ranger, who is sitting alone. Suddenly, the door opens and Suzu enters the room. It turns out that she is the second highest rank member in the entire division of the Yellow Keeper. She walks right by him and stands without saying a word as she stares straight ahead. The Blue Keeper gets pissed off at this and tells Yellow that he should discipline his junior properly so she doesn't do stupid things like this. But Suzu is not going to hear trash talk from anyone and strikes back by saying that maybe he feels the need to use force on her junior because he loves her secretly, but she doesn't need anyone to discipline her. Blue seems to be outraged at this, but her junior immediately shuts her down and tells him to stop getting so angry all the time. Red Keeper finally speaks up and tells Suzu that she should be a good girl and apologize to them for being late. And because Suzu doesn't want to annoy the Red Keeper, she simply bows down in apology. This satisfies him, and he sits down to eat again, but tells the remaining keepers that he made a mistake today. They all look at him, and he explains that while fighting the Duster, his divine weapon ended up getting stolen, and he can't even find it even after destroying the fighter. Because of that, he can't really transform into the Red Keeper right now, and is simply wearing a costume for the looks, even though it is pretty stuffy. He tells them that they should deal with the fighters and show them what will happen if they ever try to betray them. Suzu tells the Keeper that maybe the fighter didn't hide it, but instead gave it away to someone else, even though she knows that it is her who has the weapon right now. Thankfully, the Red Keeper doesn't catch on to this, and tells everyone that they need to be more careful from now on and begins eating. To everyone's surprise, his junior stops him and claims that the Keeper has made a terrible blunder, and shouldn't be let off so easily. According to him, the divine weapon is the strongest weapon in existence, which keeps the humanity safe, and for getting fooled by a mere fighter and losing the weapon, he should simply resign from his post and let someone else be the Red Keeper. The Keeper stops eating, while everyone stares at them intensely. The Keeper somberly replies that he did make a terrible mistake, and maybe he should really resign and hand the post over to the white-haired junior. The junior immediately gets excited and starts claiming that he has always wanted to be a keeper, and he thinks he can do a better job at it than Red did. The Keeper quietly gets up and smashes the junior into the wall while choking him out. Everyone is shocked at this as the junior bleeds like crazy because of the terrible injuries. The Keeper, however, asks the junior how will he become the Keeper if he is so weak. Then, without saying another word, he punches the junior into oblivion, before sitting down covered in blood as he finishes his meal. Meanwhile, Hibai repeatedly watches the clip of D getting defeated, and tries to look for clues about whether he could be alive. The Keepers also fear this, so Blue takes out one of his juniors and tells him that if D is still alive, he could either go back to the fortress or get simply blown away into the wind. He gives him the job to check the wind direction and try to find the monster, while he himself goes to the fortress to check. Meanwhile, D has somehow managed to survive, as he reappears inside the forest, with wounds on his entire body. It turns out that before he could be hit by the divine attack, he used the explosives that he got in the room to explode himself to make it look like he died. He manages to get his body together to an extent, but the area where he got hurt by the divine attack refuses to heal itself. He starts crawling away into the forest while reminding himself that he can't die right now as he needs to defeat the Rangers and dominate the world. Suddenly, he looks up to see Hibai looking down at him. It turns out that Hibai also expected D to survive and decided to look for him in the forest. He brings him back into a cave where he sets him down and asks if he is okay. He tells D that he is here to help him, but the fighter gets mad at him and tries to strike him, only to fall down because of his injuries. Hibai tells him to calm down and notices that he is unable to heal his stomach wound, so he offers to put some first aid on it. D refuses to take his help and tells him to back off, as he decides to use a part of his arm to fill the wound in his stomach, which would do as a temporary fix. Hibai is fascinated by this. D immediately gets embarrassed and starts showing off his skills by converting his arm into a cat, and then asks Hibai whether he has any requests. Hibai asks him to turn the hand into his face, and D manages to do so very easily, so after that Hibai asks whether he can create a mask of a fighter's face. D tells him that it is not a problem for a great fighter like him, and immediately creates a mask of himself before handing it over to Hibai. He wears it on his face and starts acting like a fighter, but D tells him that being a fighter is a very respected job and not every other person could do it. Hibai suddenly starts telling him his backstory, even though D tells him that he has no interest in it. Hibai continues nonetheless and claims that he was raised by very religious and non-violent parents who despised humans who altered the flow of nature. Once, Hibai defended a kitten from getting eaten by a bunch of crows and wanted to heal it back, but his father told him that all lives are equally valuable, and that even the crows need to it. He forces Hibai to leave the kitten alone to get destroyed by the crows, as he tells them that God doesn't want them to interfere with the nature. After that one day, the flying fortress descended on Earth, and everyone got afraid, not knowing what will happen next. Hibai's sociopathic parents, however, believe that they are righteous people, and will always be protected by the gods no matter what, so they need not worry at all. One day, his dad catches him watching the Rangers fighting against the monsters, and this makes the self-righteous so mad that he breaks the remote and almost smashes the TV, claiming that only God can save them, and that these Rangers are stopping God from helping them. After that one day, while they were in the church, God descended from the sky while the idiots were all gathered around an altar to pray. The weird white-robed God descends down to the ground and tells the followers not to worry as he is God and will fix everything. Meanwhile, Hibai was outside and wanted to get in the room, but his sister stops him with a bitch slap, telling him that it's dangerous. Suddenly, the entire room explodes, and when the dust settles, Hibai walks in to find a huge load of corpses, including his parents, on the ground. The god notices him and his sister, and tells them that he will give salvation to all as he prepares his beam to demolish them. But his sister saves him by pushing him out the way. When the dust settles, the sister is seen crushed beneath some rubble, while an injured Hibai gets up and steps in front of her sister ready to fight. Hibai snaps back to reality and claims that somehow he survived and decided that he will become a ranger and save humanity by killing all the monsters one day. Dee tells him that he is not interested in his story, and if he was strong enough, he would have simply walked out the cave. He tells Hibai to run away if he wants because he is pretty strong and has also defeated the Joker dude. Hibai asks whether he is talking about Shun because he definitely is very strong and is the 5th strongest member of Red Keeper's team. This makes Dee wiggle as he thinks about how cool he is when suddenly they realize that a ranger has entered the forest. It turns out to be Blues Jr., known as Heki, who seems to be having trouble navigating through the forest. Hibai ends up intercepting him and lies that he has seen the injured fighter in the other direction, saving Dee's ass. Hibai tries to confuse the ranger with wrong directions, but this pisses Heki off, who puts his scythe on Hibai's neck, telling him that he shouldn't be wrong this time. Thankfully, Dee reveals himself and saves Hibai's ass as he jumps down from above and hits Heki straight in the face. Unfortunately, because of his injuries, it barely does anything to the ranger, who gets pissed off and activates the replica of a divine weapon. This weapon is much weaker than the divine weapons of the Keepers, but should be strong enough to deal with a fighter anyways. Dee immediately starts running away while Heki keeps slashing all around the area, calling Dee out and telling him to reveal himself. Dee, however, knows that he is already weak and keeps hiding when finally, Heki destroys every single tree around. Dee plays a trick as he emerges from the tree trunk and grabs the weapon from Heki's hands and laughs about how he has all the power now. He gets ready to attack, but suddenly the weapon starts heating and his hands get burnt as he drops the weapon to the ground. Heki picks it up and tells him that he has put a special sensor which he can activate to heat the weapon up at any time. He immediately runs away, but Hibai catches up to him with a plan. By the time Heki arrives, Dee pretends to take Hibai as a hostage and promises to execute him if Heki didn't drop his weapon. To their surprise, Heki gets ready to kill both Hibai and the fighter, but Hibai tells him that he already called the HQ who are sending the force. Heki realizes that it will look bad if he kills a ranger just to deal with a fighter, so he drops the weapon to the floor. Dee walks up to pick the weapon up, but Heki uses his weird acid ability to force him to back off as he runs to the weapon. To his surprise, Hibai grabs the weapon and tells Heki to back off as he goes ahead and chops off Dee's head before kicking him in the ravine. He tells Heki that the job is done and they both sit in a helicopter as Hibai watches outside. It turns out that Hibai and Dee ended up hatching a plan where Hibai chopped his arm off and used Dee's mask to pretend to be the fighter, while Dee changed his appearance into that of Hibai's. This way, Dee can infiltrate into the HQ once again, while Hibai makes highway back outside, so that together they can destroy the Rangers. Dee looks out the window hoping that Hibai doesn't die, while on the ground, a wounded Hibai walks through the forests, hoping that Dee will be able to fulfill the goal that he was never able to do himself. Dee finally reaches the city again, but because it was late night, he decides to get some rest in Hibai's dorm room. While inside the room, he keeps hearing a weird noise coming from somewhere which keeps pissing him off as he thinks about his plan further. He checks himself in the mirror to make sure that his disguise is perfect, and after he is satisfied with his transformation, he thinks about how he might look a little thinner than before because he was forced to use some of his body to patch up the wound in his stomach which still hurts. He remembers the conversation that he had with Hibai once again, where Hibai tells him about the monster that claimed to be God and killed his parents alongside a lot of other people. He claims that he would have also died alongside his sister, but at the very last moment, The former Blue Keeper arrived out of nowhere and blocked the attack before destroying the monster in a matter of seconds. According to Hibai, the former Blue Keeper was an excellent person, and even took both Hibai and his sister under his wings to raise them as his own child. This was the reason why Hibai got so excited to be one of the Rangers. But when he actually entered the world, he realized that this is all a sham created by the Keepers to milk the public out of their money as they forcefully keep the war between humans and monsters going. He looks at D and tells him that they need to end the war once and for all, but D has nothing much to say. As for him, ending the war means killing all the Keepers and the Rangers before taking over the world, as he has never learned what else he could do to end a war. Hibai, on the other hand, simply wants to expose the Keepers, as he claims that once he tried to sell a bunch of tapes that he secretly recorded to a big news studio. But when he arrived at the point of contact, some people attacked him, forcing him to flee, as he realized that the problem is extremely deep-rooted at this point and won't disappear this easily. Hibai then turned to D and asked him about his plans for the futures when the war ends, but surprisingly enough, D has nothing to say as he has never even thought about it. Suddenly, he snaps back to the present because of the weird noise in his room and shakes his thoughts as he tries to focus at the task at hand, which is the death of all the Keepers. He walks over to the desk to find a laptop half open with the light blinking. He has never seen this device before, so he starts inspecting it. But his clumsy drops the laptop down and it literally breaks into two separate pieces. Just then, he remembers Hibai telling him that once D enters the Rangers HQ, he will probably meet with his fellow Rangers, so Hibai recorded all the data about his relationships with each one of them inside the computer, so that D has no issues acting like him. He turns pale and immediately runs over to the tech department where he begs the IT nerd to fix his PC. At first the nerd refuses, but ends up taking the laptop anyway to try fixing it once. In return, he hands Hibai a bunch of ID cards, as he tells him to distribute them to all of his fellow mates. He starts walking through the corridor while thinking about how the nerd was very nice for a ranger, and decides that he will kill the nerd in the very end because of his niceness, when suddenly someone calls him out. He looks over to find a black and blonde guy straight out of Tokyo Revengers walking towards him as he congratulates him for killing a fighter all on his own. D quickly ruffles through the ID cards and quickly finds out that the guy is named Yama and hands him the card, trying to act in a friendly manner. Thankfully, Yama seems like a friend of Hibai's, so he asks him whether they could get out of the building. But Yama reminds him that during work hours, they are basically on a curfew and cannot leave the building at all. He looks at the floor plan, realizing that he is basically in the basement, as he turns around once again and asks whether he can meet one of the Keepers. Yama politely replies that even he wants to be a part of their team, but to do that they have to perform well in simulations, and only then they might get selected by one of the Keepers. D cusses Hibai out in his mind for being such a loser without a rank, but Yama tells him not to worry, as when he joined the Rangers, even he thought that he will become the next Red Keeper in no time and get all the girls and glory. But all of it turned out to be only a figment of his imagination, as he didn't even get selected in any of the teams. Yama tells him that the rest of the Rangers can be found in the canteen, and he should distribute the rest of the cards over there. Taking his advice, D heads towards the canteen where he spots a bunch of different Rangers just sitting and chilling around. He starts handing them their cards one by one, while also trying to understand their relationship with Hibai. After distributing most of the cards, only 3 remain. He walks over to one of the white-haired candidate who seems to be sitting alone, but the moment he tries to touch the Ranger, he swings his arms at him, barely missing, as D falls to the ground. The white-haired guy tells him to stay away from him as he walks away, while Yama tells him that he shouldn't mess with that guy as he is dangerous. D tries to get the remaining 2 cards off the ground, but one of the Rangers put their feet on it, telling him to back off. The weird Afro dude picks both the cards up and gives one to his delinquent friend, who looks at D and tells him not to act too high and mighty because he killed a fighter, as according to him all fighters are weaklings anyways. D controls his anger to not blow his cover. After that, he starts walking back to his dorm room when he suddenly gets called out from behind. He turns around to see a beautiful woman in a wheelchair slowly racing towards him, claiming that it's been a while since they last talked. D obviously has no idea who the hell this person is and starts panicking when he notices that their eyes are matching, and gambles his life on the hunch that she is Hibai's sister. His gamble turns out to be correct, as she asks why is he being so distant from her for the past few days. Dee doesn't know how to reply to her as he has no idea what's happening between the two of them, so he simply makes an excuse and runs off back into his room. He starts breathing hard as he cusses Hibai out for not mentioning that his sister was also a part of the Rangers. Suddenly, the noise starts coming from the closet again, and pissed off at it, Dee walks up and opens the closet with a bang. To his utter shock, he spots a pair of beautiful eyes staring back at him. This scares him, and he starts running away, but the girl immediately jumps out and grabs him before putting a sword to his throat. She immediately calms down and claims that she didn't know Hibai came back. This makes him realize that this girl is also a fighter who must have been stranded on Earth. She asks when will he let her out of the room. But before Dee could clear up the confusion, Hibai's sister sounds from outside and asks whether Hibai is okay. The fighter girl immediately starts walking towards the door, claiming that she will kill all the Rangers but will make a special exception for Hibai because he was nice to her. Before she could get to the door though, Dee jumps from behind and grabs her mouth, pushing her to the ground and tells her to be quiet for now. Hibai's sister asks whether everything is alright with him, so Dee makes an excuse about how he is just cleaning up the room. This sudden movement surprises the fighter girl, who thought Hibai was much more mild-mannered, and she asks what happened to him that made him so assertive. Dee has no idea what the hell she is talking about and wonders what the hell she is doing here. He immediately clears up the confusion as he reveals his true identity as a fighter, claiming that his name is Dee, and he is here to infiltrate and defeat the Rangers from the inside. The girl immediately bows down and apologizes for attacking him, claiming that she didn't know the monsters were still alive on Earth. He tells her to stay hidden for now as he opens the door and lets Hibai's sister in. He makes an excuse about how he was fixing some pipes when she offers him some apples. He tries to take them and get out of the room, but she stops him, claiming that she wants to talk. He tries to have a conversation with her to the best of his abilities, but she seems to have some suspicions as she accidentally throws her knife at the cupboard where the other fighter was hiding. Dee immediately rushes to retrieve it and hands it over to her. This raises her suspicions even more, but before she could investigate, she gets a call and is forced to leave. Suddenly, the girl fighter erupts from the cupboard and accuses Dee of being on the same side of the Rangers, as he didn't kill the girl that came in this room. Dee tells her to calm down, but she attacks him, as she claims that she didn't bow down to the Rangers and continued fighting on Earth, and she will keep doing till they are dead. Dee realizes that this girl might ruin his plans, so he ends up pretending to follow whatever she says. But the moment he gets an opportunity, he cuts off her head and captures it in a box, preventing her from regenerating. Suddenly, Hibai's sister enters the room again to ask whether everything is alright, and she again manages to lie his way out of this situation. His sister tells him to drop out of the Ranger squad as he is a pacifist and won't be able to live a happy life here. But he tells her that he will become a very strong Ranger and will bring justice to the world one day or another. The next day, the Ranger exams start and all the cadets enter the battleground where they have to fight fake monsters. Dee decides to call out to the others because there were civilians around, but he realizes that the others only care about killing monsters, as they simply destroy any monster that comes near them. Dee realizes that he needs to do something as well, so he tries to kill the last remaining monster, when the short white-haired boy ends up intervening and kills the last monster before trying to attack Dee. The instructor tells them to stop immediately while Dee asks what is stuck up his ass that he is trying to steal his kills. The white-haired boy replies that he is already leading in kills and doesn't need to steal anything. They are given a short break, during which Dee goes back in his dorm room still pissed at Shin and decides that he will deal with him soon enough. He asks the lowly named Fighter X whether Hibai told her anything about these exams, but she seems to be mad at him and claims that he is a traitor and she won't talk to him. Dee tells her not to be stupid, as infiltrating the Rangers from the inside is the best way of destroying the Dragon Keepers from within. Soon they are called once again, and they all assemble in front of the instructor, who tells them that this is a very important exam because if they survive and win this test, they will be scouted by the Ranger teams one by one if they are good enough. He explains the rules by claiming that this is a team match where they will be divided into 4 teams that are pink, yellow, green, blue, and red. Unfortunately, Dee ends up being in a team with Shin, as they both wanted to join the red team. The instructor further explains that they have to acquire a key from the monster of their respective Ranger force, and to do that they will have 3 days. During this time they must fight as a team, otherwise these Rangers will easily destroy all the cadets. This scares Dee a bit, as the Rangers are pretty powerful, and he doubts that Shin would want to work as a team. The test starts and they all start going in their separate direction. While walking, both Dee and Shin end up coming with two different strategies, as Shin wants to face these monsters straight up while Dee wants to hide and wait for the correct opportunity. Shun calls him weak and pathetic for wanting to hide and claims that he won't do that. Dee feels frustrated as it is especially dangerous for him. If he gets hit even once, his cover will be blown and everyone will know that he is a real monster. He decides to follow Shin while thinking about a way to win him over when suddenly Suzu emerges from behind a pillar, shocking Dee. She claims that she was trying to find the cadets from the yellow squad so she could deal with them quickly, but wouldn't mind having fun with the red cadets either. They realize that in this test, the monsters are none other than the senior rangers of the squads that they want to get in, and realize how difficult it's going to be. Suddenly a voice from behind turns their attention as they notice that another guy who sounds familiar is standing behind them in his red squad uniform. Dee thinks that he has seen him before when he realizes that the red squad guy is none other than Takeda, who he ended up defeating before. Suzu laughs and claims that 2-on-2 might be too much for the cadets and thinks what should be done, but Shin is arrogant and decides to attack her. Before he could reach her though, she gets hit by Truck Kun, which was driven by the yellow group including Yama. He comes out wondering whether he killed her, but to their horror, Suzu appears behind them without a scratch and asks what did they want to do with that stunt. Dee decides to make a run for it as he wants to come up with a strategy, while Shin simply runs straight at Takeda and starts attacking him viciously and manages to disarm the Red Ranger. Takeda smiles at him, but Shin is too arrogant and starts making fun of Takeda for getting beat up by a mere fighter before. This pisses him off as he grabs Shin's arm and punches him in the face before delivering a flurry of attacks as if Shin was a punching bag before throwing him away. Dee watches all this and realizes that if this keeps going on, they will never be able to defeat these people. He decides to play it smartly and uses the long-range configuration on his lightsaber and starts shooting Takeda, who dodges them and starts shooting back. Shin ends up interfering once again and starts battling it out with Takeda, but gets kicked away once again. Dee gets an idea and starts shooting Takeda before aiming for the fire extinguisher behind him. The sudden smoke blast covers the entire room, giving them time to strategize. Shin wants nothing to do with it though and tells Dee to piss off as he is not going to cooperate. Dee realizes that it's useless and rushes to safety while Shin engages in combat once again, only for Takeda to style on him as he takes out his gun and starts shooting. Shin manages to evade the attacks, but an explosion blasts him away, after which he becomes a punching bag once again as Takeda kicks him like a soccer ball again and again. He was about to finish Shin off when suddenly Truck Kun breaks through the walls to Ice Sky Takeda, but fails to do so. He turns around to see Hisui, the senior ranger of the Green Squad, who complains that one of the Red Squad cadets interfered in her battle, while Dee sits atop the rubble and makes fun of them for not being able to defeat mere cadets like them. Hisui gets pissed and takes out a dagger from her mouth, before telling Takeda to take it seriously and finish the match. Takeda immediately shoots at Dee, who evades the attack and runs off once again and tells the Green Squad cadets to surround the two rangers. He realizes that the cutie is injured and can't realistically fight, so he comes up with a plan and asks her whether she could draw the faces of the two rangers for him. The rangers are still taking it pretty lightly as they make jokes, but suddenly Dee comes out of hiding and throws two fire extinguishers in the air, which are then exploded by the cadets. Takeda doesn't understand why they are playing this cat and mouse game, but because of the smoke they can't see well and Hisui ends up attacking Takeda. They go their separate way once again, but this time Takeda ends up attacking Hisui, who gets mad at him. It turns out though that this was not Takeda, but Fighter Dee, who got the sketch of both the rangers from the cutie and is trying to start a fight between them. This time, the real Takeda ends up attacking Hisui by mistake, but she gets mad at him and attacks him back, threatening to kill him if he does this again. Takeda doesn't understand why is Hisui so mad about one mistake, while Hisui tells him that she is 3 ranks higher than him despite being younger, so it would be better if he doesn't mess with her. Meanwhile, Dee asks Shin whether he would like to work together, but Shin refuses once again, so Dee leaves him behind and goes inside the smoke once again. He ends up finding Takeda, who got injured by Hisui and was walking around when Dee shoots him to the ground while taunting him. Dee realizes that because Takeda can't see very well from his left eye due to his injury, he is more susceptible to attacks from that direction and hurts him once again. This pisses Takeda off as he starts swinging his sword around randomly and gets tricked by Dee, which gives Shin the opportunity to attack him, and with the help of D, he manages to land a massive punch, knocking Takeda down. Suddenly, Hisui walks through the smoke completely frustrated and kicks the shit out of Takeda in anger before punching Shin to a pulp. She then turns her attention towards D and would have destroyed him, but Ishii from the Green Cadet Squad ends up shooting at her, which serves as a distraction while the cutie jumps from behind and tackles her to the ground. D tries to take advantage of this situation and rushes towards Takeda to defeat him, while the Red Ranger gets up to counter. Thankfully for D, Shin ends up coming to the rescue and grabs Takeda's leg, stopping him from dodging the attack as D charges ahead with his sword to finish him off. Thankfully for Toki, the bell rings, alarming everyone about the end of the exam for the day, which will continue for 2 more days. Even after that, Takeda ends up jumping Shin, and they both start rolling on the ground, as Toki claims that they should simply go into overtime and tries to punch the crap out of Shin. Thankfully, D is right behind him, and immediately takes out his sword before pointing it right at Toki's neck, forcing him to stop. Shin urges him to quickly grab the key at the back of Toki, but Shin notices that there is only one key, and according to the coordinator, each person needs a key in order to go into the next round. His mind starts getting confused when Toki tells him to get a brain, as he must be the stupidest person alive not to realize what's really happening. Suddenly it falls on D that they are not all fighting against these make-believe monster, but they are also fighting against themselves. If he wants to get the key, he will have to fight against Shin and grab it from him before he can take it away. Before he could do anything, however, the Green Ranger walks in, scaring the crap out of the rest and tells Toki to knock it off as the day is over. He walks up and alongside Hisui they walk away, leaving Shin battered and bloody. A little while later they all assemble in the main hall where all of them are badly beaten and barely able to stand. All of them have gotten their wills broken as some of them simply decide to walk away as they came here to fight actual monsters and not these rangers who are beating them up and also mocking them for being so weak. She claims that she can't stay in such a toxic workplace environment, while Yama tries to stop her in order to not lose his team. She wouldn't listen to any reason, but then Ishii stops her and goes over to have a chat with her. Even the cutie sits on the ground, tired and defeated, claiming that they can never win against these rangers as they are too strong. But Shin, even after getting his ass handed to him, has way too much pride and ego as he tells everyone that anyone who can't take this challenge should leave as they are cowardly crybabies anyways. Meanwhile, Urabe the Edgelord claims that he would know who is cowardly if he fought against the Blue Ranger who is so small but yet incredibly strong. He gets up and walks away with his lackey, while the other pink-haired girl claims that her partner decided that he needed more training and went to the gym. D realizes that these rangers have no intentions on letting these people pass, and was trying to think of a way to get through it, when suddenly from the corner of his eye, he notices X running through the tunnels far away. His breath gets caught in his lungs as he checks whether anyone else saw her, before he tries to excuse himself by saying he has something very important he needs to attend to. Shin tells him that nothing is more important than their test right now, but D claims that the day is over so he will head down to get some more training done. While he was leaving though, Shin stops him and claims that he wants to have a conversation with him, but D cuts him off claiming that he will talk to her after a while and runs off. He finds X tapping on the steel pipes for no reason and grabs her from behind, scaring the daylights out of her. He scolds her for moving outside as he takes her back to his room and shoves her inside the cupboard, telling her that it's her stronghold which she needs to stay in and guard. X tries to protest, but D shuts the door off before leaving the room. In an unfortunate turn of event, the nerd who D gave his laptop to repair comes by and puts his laptop down on the table as he tries to look for him. Suddenly he notices the gaping hole in the cupboard and wonders what the hell this guy is doing in his room. He checks over the damage as he is in the maintenance department and decides to take the door with him as it needs to get replaced. To his absolute horror and surprise, the moment he takes the door out, he spots X sitting there in the corner. For a moment both of them stare at each other as the nerd tries to understand why the hell would there be a child in this room. Before he could even react though, X jumps out with her blade and tries to kill him. Thankfully, the nerd has played a lot of Dark Souls and dodges the attack before counter-attacking with his own sword, which injures X, who stumbles to the ground and sits there with her back against the wall, scared of the consequences. The nerd walks up to her, claiming that he never expected a duster to be inside the very headquarters, while X thinks that she is done for and will probably die here. To her absolute surprise though, he puts his weapon down and tells her not to worry as he won't hurt her. He tells her that he will find a way for her to escape this facility, and then they can both go their own way. X can't believe this and asks the nerd what is his master plan. But the nerd simply replies that he isn't interested in this war between humans and the monsters. According to him, all of this can be settled peacefully if either of them tried to, but everyone wants to destroy the other faction. He tells her that he hated fighting, that's why he joined the maintenance squad, even though he was one of the best fighters in his class. While all this is happening, D is inside a training ground alongside Shin, who wanted to have a private conversation with him. D asks what does he want as he has better things to do, but Shin straight up gets to the point and asks what the hell does D actually want. D realizes that Shin must have sensed the change between the previous Hibiki and him, as he is much more ruthless while Hibiki was a total softie. He asks why the hell does he want to be a ranger, and D starts reciting the story that Hibiki told him about his childhood and how both his parents got murdered by the monster boss who called himself the god. He continued that the Blue Ranger saved him, and ever since then he wanted to become like that. Very eagerly, Shin asks about this monster boss that he was talking about, but D himself doesn't know anymore, so he lies that he forgot about it. That's when Shin reveals that 4 years ago, his brother, who was also a ranger, got killed by that very monster who didn't even give him a fighting chance, and simply trampled his body to the ground. At first D doesn't pay much attention, but suddenly he asks whether he meant 13 years ago or 4 years ago, as he knows that all of the bosses were killed by the Dragon Keepers 13 years ago. Shin looks at him suspiciously and tells him that he is acting like the Dragon Keepers, who told him that it's impossible that his brother was killed by a boss monster, and completely ignored his pleas as they closed the case on his brother. Ever since then, Shin got obsessed with taking revenge and started watching all the Sunday Showdown. But to his surprise, the monster that killed his brother never appeared. In fact, the monster bosses that come during that time are pathetically weak. D thinks about how they are weak because they are simply the dusters pretending to be monsters. D thinks that this must be a mistake, as there is no way a boss monster is still alive and walking the earth in disguise, as he thinks about whether X knows anything about it. Back in his room, the nerd tries to calm X down and starts telling her a way to escape this place, when suddenly they hear a beam charging, and a powerful beam completely goes from one side of the nerd to the other, leaving him dead on the ground in an instant. Fearful of what she might see, she slowly turns her head around only to see the god monster, who stands in front of her and asks whether she is alright and how he liked what the nerd said. X is completely mind blown, as she can't comprehend how a boss monster can be alive, but the god tells her not to worry and come with him. After a while, D returns back to the room thinking that X is still in the cupboard, while in truth only the dead body of the nerd is lying there. The next morning he goes to the training ground as the match starts, but to his surprise, Shin hasn't arrived yet. Suddenly the Blue Ranger appears and starts talking to him sweetly, claiming that she lost the key already. She gives him the location of Shin as he runs down, only to find him engaged in a battle with Toki. D tells him to calm down as they have to work together, but Shin doesn't seem to hear him and keeps pressing on the attack. To his surprise, suddenly the other Rangers like Ishii, Urabe, the annoying girl all start attacking Toki in unison, but even after that he manages to dodge and hit all of them away. During the confusion though, Shin manages to grab the key from Toki, winning the battle. Toki sits down in the corner, while D stands there unable to believe his eyes as he realizes that these 5 asshats have joined forces and betrayed their teammates to work together as a team and get the keys for themselves. They all walk away while D joins a defeated Yama and the cutie in a van, where Yama claims that they should just forget about it. The cutie tells them that even they should make a team and try to win it back, which sounds like a good plan to D, who goes ahead and finds the abandoned member from Urabe's team lying on the ground beaten. He tries to wake Kagu up to join them, but he refuses before angrily punching D. To his surprise, he realizes that D is not actually a human but a fighter, which makes him piss his pants as he immediately gets up and starts following his orders. They find out that the betrayers have gathered 4 keys already, and the only one remaining is the Yellow Ranger Susu, so they surround her completely and point their weapons at her. She refuses to give the key to them, which forces all of them to shoot, but when the dust clears they realize that she is completely unharmed. Suddenly Kagu jumps from the shadows and attacks her with his sword, while D smiles thinking it was a direct hit, but when the dust clears they realize that she has a barrier surrounding her. Kagu tries his absolute best with constant attacks to wither the barrier down, but it is of no use as she stands there bored. They all start shooting, but their ammo soon runs out. D shouts that they have to put their all, so they drop their weapons and lunge forward to attack her. But she easily walks by them with quickness and shoves Yama in the wall because he is acting too much like a bitch. She starts making fun of his cowardice when D tries to punch her away, but she blocks it. She suddenly realizes that this guy is not Hibai but definitely D, so she simply hands the key over to Yama and walks away. They all start celebrating, but their celebrations are stopped as the betrayers walk by them and the nasty bitch grabs Yama's hands and takes the key out before claiming that they won. D angrily tries to strike her down, but she blocks the attack, and before he could follow her, Urabe starts clashing with him. Soon the bell rings and they are forced to stop the fight as D seethes with anger, vowing to get the keys back from these cowards. It might all be for nothing though, as the boss monster walks through the facility destroying anyone and anything that comes in his path, while the Blue Ranger watches from the corner, sweating with fear. Urabe and the bitch high-five because they think that they have passed the test, and they are official rangers now. The girl approaches Yama, saying that she heard that he wants to join the rangers to become popular with girls. She calls him a vain coward and tells him to choose another job because he couldn't even keep a key safe. Urabe also approaches Kagu, but he doesn't look him in the eye. Meanwhile, the cutie is counting seconds, and just as she counts to 60, D suddenly goes to Urabe and the pink girl to congratulate them on their victory. He tells them to do their best when they become rangers, and then suddenly swipes the key from the pink girl's hands. He reaches his team and they celebrate that they got the key back, but the betrayers are not happy about it. They say that they are not allowed to take the key because the test is over now. They complain to Shin and others who just arrived on the scene, saying that they stole the key from them even after the bell rang. However, Shin says that he didn't hear the bell and the day is still not over. Urabe and the bitch are shocked by that, and as they turn towards the loser gang, they find them grinning menacingly while admitting that they got found out. The loser team begins running away with everyone else following them. A couple minutes ago, D had asked Kagu to fiddle with the bell so that it rings a bit earlier than the set time. Everyone realized that he plans to trick others into thinking that the time is over so that they can steal the key from them. Right now, they are running away to keep the key safe till the day officially ends. Kagu and the cutie turn back and attack the pursuers. They manage to stall everyone except Shin, who keeps on chasing them. Yama asks D to give him the key, promising to protect it with his life. D eats the key ahead and Yama picks up pace, catching the key and running away. D tells his teammates to protect Yama, but then Shin suddenly attacks him. He blocks his attack, and they keep on exchanging blows while the others pass them. D takes out his gun and shoots at them, hitting Ishii and causing him to fall down. Even as he is falling, Ishii manages to shoot the key out of Yama's hand, and the pink bitch catches up to him. They are running shoulder to shoulder with each other and dive to catch the key. Suddenly, the bell rings, and the announcement is made for everyone to stop their fights and head back immediately. Everyone is forced to head back dissatisfied, but D and his team are happily lying on the ground, with Yama still clutching the key with all his might. Meanwhile, the boss monster is walking through the facility, and he spots a girl in front of him. He is about to blow her away, but the Blue Ranger reacts quickly and saves her from his attack. She tells the girl to run away, but she refuses to leave her here. She gets up, and then the boss monster blows off her head clean, saying that she really should have run away. The Blue Ranger is afraid now, and the boss monster leans closer to her, asking if she doesn't find it hard to live with the burden of responsibility. He can tell that she is not as young as she looks, and she is constantly pressured by her duties. He tells her that he can free her from this hard life and begins glowing, asking her to surrender to him. The Blue Ranger gets angry at this, and she unleashes her power, saying that she doesn't want any favors from a creep. She manifests her divine artifact, a pistol called Yumabazu, that summons a giant monster head made of water behind her. The giant water head and the boss monster both fire their shots, creating a huge explosion. On the other hand, D and his friends are really happy that they survived the day. Everyone praises Kagu for his great contribution to their team today. Yama tells him that since he is so good with his hands and technology, he should join the yellow squad instead of the blue squad. Yama wants to join the blue squad instead, and the cutie is fine with being a green ranger. Kagu tells them that they are getting too hopeful, but D tells him that it is only right to do so. After that, Yama and Cutie leave to find another member, and Kagu is left alone with D. He asks him why is a duster like him here. D replies that he is not going to tell his secrets to an enemy, and Kagu says that they are comrades who have fought together. D turns his hand into a blade and threatens him to stay silent, but Kagu doesn't think that he is a bad guy capable of killing people. He simply walks away, telling D to complete whatever he has to do and return to the group quickly. Kagu meets up with Yama and others, who have found the guy called Shippo, who has lost his confidence and mind. He thinks that he is an ant who is too weak to fight a dragon, and says that there is no hope for him. Kagu tells him that they can still win because they are not losers anymore, because they have taken a key. He asks Shippo to join them too, and the others also repeat his words. They try motivating Shippo by making him do his favorite bench press, but he doesn't have any hope of facing the ranger with the amazing muscles he fought before. Yama tells him that he won't need to fight the ranger anymore because his key is already with the other team. That suddenly ignites the flame in Shippo's heart, and he returns to his full strength and says that he will take the key away from them at all costs. On the other hand, D is spying on Ishii and the pink bitch getting lovey-dovey with each other, and he wants to puke at this sight. Meanwhile, his teammates plan something out, and after syncing their weapons, they plan to rest for the night. Kagu asks Yama if he really meant it when he asked him to join the yellow squad earlier. Yama says that he was certain about it, but if Kagu still wants to join the blue squad, it is fine by him. That reminds Kagu of his school days with Urabe, and he smiles before heading out to see the instructors. Yama also has some plans, and he tries telling the cutie that he isn't going to meet his girlfriend because she doesn't have one, but she doesn't care. Kagu runs into D as he is returning and tells him that they discussed something important and he should learn about it from Cutie. He then thanks D out of nowhere for making him realize his abilities. Kagu used to consider Urabe as his hero, but now he is determined to become a hero himself. As he is walking around, he sees some ethereal feathers falling slowly to the ground. He looks ahead and finds the boss monster with its wings blown off, and an injured blue ranger in front of him. X notices and recognizes him, but now Kagu is too terrified. He runs away, unable to comprehend what he just saw. He wants someone to save the blue ranger, but then decides to be that someone. He rushes to the side and places himself in front of the blue ranger and draws out his lightsaber, telling the boss monster to not harm the girl anymore. She tells him to run away, but Kagu just pushes her into the elevator, and the doors close as she tries to tell him to run away. Kagu is still facing the boss monster, and he yells that he is a ranger too. He leaps at him with an attack, but the boss just shoots through him, slamming him against the wall. However, he has also taken too much damage against the blue ranger, and decides to go to a quiet place to recover. He asks X to clean up the mess, and she just looks at Kagu and calls him a fool. On the other hand, D saw Yama going somewhere, so he followed him, only to find out that he was trying to negotiate with Ishii to get the pink bitch's spot on their team in exchange for handing over the key. Ishii is willing to accept it, and D hears it all from under the table. He realizes that Ishii is an even bigger scumbag than him, but right now, he must do something before they lose the key. However, Yama doesn't simply hand over the key to Ishii because it was their team who worked hard to earn this key. D comes out of hiding and tells Yama that he did the right thing, and they head back instantly. Soon after that, Suzu and other seniors find the bloodstains on the spot where the boss monster fought the Blue Ranger and defeated Kagu. Suzu says that since an attacker is on the loose, they shouldn't be holding an exam, but her colleagues disagree. Toki tells everyone to bring their divine artifact replicas because they must hunt down the enemy themselves without letting the higher-ups know about it. The next day, D and his team are assembled and Kagu seems to be perfectly fine despite the serious damage he took yesterday. They approach the other team, and Ishii suggests that they duel it out among each other to obtain the rights to the keys. D says that they will fight each other one-on-one in fair duels, and the only weapon they can use are their lightsabers. The matchups are set soon, with Kagu facing Urabe and the cutie facing Ishii. D faces Shin and mocks him for betraying them and teaming up with the enemies. Shin replies that he is willing to betray everyone to become an official ranger to fulfill his goal. D simply tells him that he is just overreacting, and the incident with his brother was not the fault of a boss monster because they are all dead. Shin gets furious at this and draws out his lightsaber, and D does the same. However, D's lightsaber is much longer and more powerful, and Shin is dumbfounded on seeing that. Yesterday, the cutie told D about something extraordinary that Kagu had discovered in their weapon. Apart from being a gun and a lightsaber, It could be modified to a third configuration that releases a great amount of energy at once, and it is extremely helpful for a short duration fight. Now, everyone is using the same energy burst configuration. D swings around the lengthy laser blade, destroying the floor with each swing, and Shin can only dodge his attacks. D laughs, saying that he is invincible now, and Shin shoots a fire extinguisher to block his vision. He begins shooting at him, and D braves all the shots before dealing a powerful attack that crashes the floor beneath them. Shin is on the ground now, and D points his sword at him, asking him to give up the key, and also the stupid quest for vengeance. He tells Shin to admit that there was no boss monster who killed his elder brother, and he was just imagining things. That infuriates Shin, because those are the same words that the Red Ranger told him at his brother's funeral. Shin tried convincing him that he saw the boss monster with his own eyes, but the red bastard refused to believe him. He said that the boss monsters only come down for Sunday showdowns, and his brother must have been killed by a weak fighter. He told Shin that his brother was too weak to be a ranger, and those words still fuel him. Shin gets up, telling D that he is not going to stop at anything, because the entire ranger force is his enemy. D sees a glimpse of himself in him, so he asks him to surrender nicely. However, Shin attacks him, and D is forced to strike him down with his full power. As Shin falls down, he remembers his brother's words when he had just passed the test to become a ranger cadet. He used to say that it is not just the monsters, but all the injustices of the world that are his true enemy. Thinking about that, Shin gets up and starts hitting his sword on the rocks. D asks him if he has lost his mind, but then Shin's sword breaks, and he is able to unleash the energy burst mode, much to D's shock. Now they are on equal grounds, and Shin declares that he will surely win this fight. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for part 9, and make sure to check out this brand new anime about this boy who gets transported into a new world as the strongest hero.